Hello and welcome to Cryptid by State, California. In starting today's video, I wanted to say that I hope everyone had a safe and happy end of the year, and I look forward to what the cryptid and paranormal world has in store for us in 2020. I also wanted to extend my concerns to those of my viewers, which there are quite a few, that live in Australia. Devastating fires have engulfed parts of the country, and I hope everyone is safe and, more importantly, okay. Today we are continuing our road trip of the cryptid kind with our next state of California. This location has quite a few encounters to its name, and not just with cryptids. Oddly enough, when I shined a light into the dark corners of the state trying to find what lurks there, something became very apparent. This was the fact that there was a lot more, dare I say, fantastical varieties in the realm of lumberjack stories. I already made a video about a handful of these a few years ago, and due to them appearing to be more in line with purely being made up, I won't be talking about them today. While I enjoy these stories, they really don't fit in with what I consider a true cryptid. But don't fret with this information, since there are a lot left to fill those spots. So grab something to drink and pack some food, since the journey from our last destination of Florida to California is going to be quite a long one. California's name is quite an interesting story. It was given its title in the 16th century by Spanish explorers after a fictional location in the 1510 romance novel named Las Surges del Esplandian. In that book, it referenced a mysterious island located to the east of Asia, and it was ruled by a queen named Calafia, and it had a population of tall, beautiful Amazonian warriors who utilized gold weapons and were all female. Why this is relevant to the naming of the territory is due to the travelers first landing on the Baja Peninsula and assuming it was simply a large island. Although some believe it was given the name by the term Californo, which means high hill, used by the Native Americans of the area. The last theory is probably the correct reason, but I still love the Spanish version. California officially became a state on September 9, 1850, and was the 31st to do so. It is a land of many wonders and beautiful scenery. This includes the famous looming giant trees in the Redwood National Forest, which according to the organization known as Seven Wonders, officially became part of the 7 Natural Wonders of North America on February 26, 2014. As usual, I love talking about the different flags of a state, so before ending this history section, I wanted to mention that California's flag has stayed fairly the same since its first creation on July 14, 1846, meant to revolt against the rule of Mexico. Although what is interesting is that with the first flag, which was made by William Todd, nephew of Abraham Lincoln's wife Mary Todd, and was painted on what materials he could find, many people thought that the bear portrayed was actually a pig, or in the local term of chochi. The flag was redesigned and officially accepted as the state symbol in 1911. The bear is of the once common grizzly and represents strength. The star was adopted from the one from the Texas flag, and it means sovereignty, with the red color meaning courage. Finally, the white background is meant to represent purity. With all that information out of the way, let's start talking about the cryptids in this state. We are starting off our search into the cryptids of California with a group that I felt needed combined as a topic. The reason for this is I found it very odd that these 3 beings fell into the strange territory of not naturally being a cryptid, but were in fact modified to be as such, if you go by their origin stories. These stories are quite incredible, even for paranormal topics, but it is really fascinating how similar their premises are. Our first story comes from Ventura County and is known as the Billowak Monster and has been mainly encountered on Wheeler County Road. This creature is said to stand at around 10 feet tall, is covered in gray fur, has long claws on its hands, is incredibly strong, and has ram horns coming from its head. This being is essentially a goat and man hybrid that is eerily similar to a couple other cryptids of the same description in other states. This being is said to have chased down hikers, attacked cars as they drive on the road, mutilate farm animals, and even in a few stories, even hurled 50-pound boulders at its intended victims. These types of descriptions are fairly commonplace for us in the cryptid world, but what isn't common is the lore behind the beast. According to legend, it lives under an old dairy farm known as the Billowak Dairy or Rancho Camulos. The story goes that the original owner, named August Rubel, started the facility in 1924. While it looked normal on the outside, many claimed that it housed a dark secret under the foundations. Legend says August belonged to the OSS, which later became the CIA, and he set up a lab under the dairy farm to work on experiments in order to create a super soldier for the OSS. One of those experiments was said to lead to the creation of the Billowak monster. After Mr. Rubel's death, his daughter, Shirley, took over watch of the property, and on May 5, 2001, it was even granted a plaque as a National Historic Landmark, which Shirley accepted. With this location's history, there are claims that not only a secret lab resides below the floors of the stables, but also a grove of orange trees and a separate room set up to house the tropical birds that August's wife had. Many have claimed that much like monster movies portray, after August's death, the beast was set free or freed itself and roams about the countryside only to return home once it's done. A similar looking beast known as the Proctor Valley Monster is said to roam about Chula Vista. Reports of this being that resembles a minotaur started in the 1960s, and it seems to have the same activity as the Billowak Monster. 18-inch footprints were collected from the beast, and they are currently held in the Bonita Museum. Many stories claim that this creature was also modified to being what it is, but not as many details are given as the previous story. Sadly, with these reports comes the inclusion of the famous hook hand urban legend, so a lot of people rule this one out as a hoax. I normally would as well, if there wasn't previous stories that describe the same creature. Although this video is made not for the purpose of debunking sightings, so we will keep it as is. A very interesting story. We aren't quite done with cryptids coming from labs. Since the 1960s, stories have emerged about a strange creature that can be found in Napa Valley on Patrick Road. I couldn't find the exact information, but stories state that at the end of the road is a military facility, complete with cameras, high fences, and some even say gun turrets. Well, legends state that in the forest around that facility resides creatures known as rebobs. They are basically human-sized flying monkeys. The only difference from what movies portray is that these beings are said to be the result of human and monkey modifications, or even that they are part robot. Descriptions vary on these beings and origin stories range in different ways, but all come back to the point that these creatures were created in a military lab. Stories claim that these creatures will wait in the trees for unsuspecting victims, and then attack them with razor-sharp claws and teeth. There are multiple stories of these cryptids attacking parked cars, and those lucky enough to escape, their vehicles are left with claw marks in the metal and large dents on the body. Some claim these beings are drawn to the Patrick Cemetery and will protect it from people. In other legends, these flying monkeys will visit people's homes through an open window and steal their children. I have to wonder if these creatures aren't the same ones that were suggested to me by longtime viewer James Kasusnik and are known as the Gilroy Gargoyles. Those creatures are black in color, have large wings and glowing red eyes and mouth. They were said to just float in the air, only flapping their wings 3 times. At first, I immediately go with the Mothman idea, but the glowing mouth and wings described as looking like bats sort of rule that out. There is only one report of this sighting that I found, but in that story it is claimed that others have seen this being as well. I will be keeping my ears open for more sightings on this being, especially since something similar was spotted near Texas. Our final story happened near Santa Ana River. On the night of November 8th of 1958, a man named Charles Wetzel was trying to make his way home. Suddenly he noticed that the river he was driving by was breaking over the bank due to the recent and ongoing rain. It was at this moment his radio started to act funny and lose signal, even though he never had a problem with that station before. It was at that moment that an odd being stepped out onto the road in front of him. He described it as being 6 feet tall, having scaly skin, long arms, a completely round head like a scarecrow, and glowing orange eyes. Its mouth protruded on a stalk, its legs were long and thin and come from the side of its body. While looking at this being from the safety of his car, he also noticed it didn't have ears or a nose. Charles stated that when this creature noticed him sitting in the car, it reached its long arms out and started scratching furiously at the windshield. The whole time the being was letting out an ear-piercing screeching sound. At first, Charles planned to shoot it with the gun he had under his seat, but thought twice about rolling down the window to do so, or by firing a bullet into the windshield, the only thing that was between him and the beast. So instead, he stomped on the gas pedal and ran it over. He stated that he could feel it scraping under the floorboards of his car, and the whole time it was screeching, and now was making a gurgling sound. Mr. Wetzel drove immediately to the Riverside police station, and they took note of the deep scratches on the hood and windshield of his car. Also, it was noticed that he had obviously run over something large by the damage to the underside of the car. Bloodhounds were taken to the scene, but no evidence was found, although it should be noted that just a night later, another driver showed up at the police station, terrified and describing a similar experience just occurring to them. As usual, there are quite a few unique cryptids that are said to roam about the state, but without making this a multi-part video, I include them as honorable mentions. You probably would assume, correctly, that California is home to many Sasquatch sightings, and they come in all types of varieties. There is even a population that was known to help humans if they were in trouble, and in the past would trade with Native Americans. A real strange entry is that of a ghost deer, or to state it correctly, elk. Reports come in that hunters see an elk in the forest, but no one is able to actually shoot one. The bullets are said to fly right through the animal without hurting it. They appear and vanish very quickly, and if tracks are left behind, they end abruptly. A being known as Dark Watchers are seen on the ridges of the Santa Lucia Mountains. These shadow beings appear very tall, and when approached vanish without a trace. I would have liked to have talked more about these, but it seems strongly divided between being a cryptid and that of being a spirit. Since they act like spirits, I am deeming them as such. Lizard people are a pretty common sighting all over the state, but since I want to make a video dedicated to those beings, I am refraining from saying too much at the moment. You may have also figured that with one of the main oceans nearby, there are plenty of sea serpent sightings as well. This includes a giant-sized Cadborosaurus nicknamed Caddy, and an extremely large-sized albino great white shark. Lake Tahoe has their own monster as well, called Tessie, with most believing it to be non-aggressive, while others claim it is the cause behind many deaths in the lake. It goes without saying that this state is also home to well-known Fresno nightcrawlers as well. There is quite a bit of information about them, so I plan on including them in an upcoming cryptid spotlight. I also want to mention that there are a few sightings of what is known as a snake-headed dog. This being caused an accident when a driver saw it cross in front of her, but interestingly the car behind her saw the same creature as well. It is not very often that we have this kind of report. This being does have historical, or should I say mythical, references to it being real, but I have to wonder if it wasn't just a mangy animal that lost all the hair from its head and neck area. I'll include a link to this story in the description. The last honorable mention is the cryptid known as the Lone Pine Mountain Devil. This creature varies in description from basically being a pterodon to a large bat with 4 wings. I would have talked about this one in more depth as well, but a vast number of people view it more as a protector of nature, in that it won't attack unless the environment is being endangered. While most descriptions claim it is a flesh and blood being, protectors fall into a completely different realm of cryptid studies. As I end this week's video, I wanted to take a moment and mention that on December 16th, John Richard Tice passed away at the age of 72. You may be more familiar with his name as Trapper on the Destination America show Mountain Monsters. I have spoken in the past many times about this show, and that while it is obviously set up for theatrics and fun, I have always given it credit for actually doing some research into the information about cryptids focused on in each episode. In saying that, I know the show was made for enjoyment, but in doing so it allowed many of these lesser known cryptids to be spread to a wider audience. John was known to be very interested in cryptids in his life outside of the show, and it really is sad that he passed away. I want to extend my well wishes to the family in this period of time. If you haven't yet done so, do please consider subscribing to my channel for more content like this, and also it would be greatly appreciated if you could share my videos with someone you know who may be interested in this type of genre. With that, be safe, and I'll see you in the next one. Later.